paradigm shifting, thought expanding, unexpected. This is not a debate, it's a convergence. The Synergy Sessions, where ideas converge, new worlds emerge.
In case you haven't noticed, we're living in a moment humanity has never faced before. The pace is accelerating, old structures are cracking, and consciousness is rising faster than most of us can process. We're at the threshold of a shift that's reshaping how we see everything. And as we evolve, so does astrology. According to my guest today, the old predictive model is giving way to a living, co-creative relationship with the cosmos. One where the planets aren't distant forces acting on us, but conscious intelligences we're meant to collaborate with. Today, I'm joined by two people who are already working in that future. Heather Ensworth, PhD, left a successful career in clinical psychology after a profound death-rebirth experience opened her connection to spirit, earth, and the living sky. Through her Rising Moon Healing Center, she integrates psychology, ancient wisdom, shamanic practice, and astrology to guide people through genuine transformation. Patrick Geary began as a United Nations human rights lawyer before turning his focus to consciousness, energy, and astrology as a practical path to clarity, sovereignty, and joy. His approach is grounded, embodied, and rooted in the reminder that the sky speaks and we're invited to respond. And both of them point to the same truth. The astrology of the future isn't about fate, it's about participation. It doesn't define us, it reveals who we're becoming. So today, we're diving into this evolutionary moment to co-creation, consciousness, 3i Atlas, and what these next two pivotal years are really asking of us. Heather Ensworth, Patrick Geary, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Sandie. It's great to be a part of this today.
It's good to have you both here. So I'm going to aim questions at you and you can both answer or take it in turns or do the ladies first thing, whatever feels right to you. But I know that both of you talk about the planets as conscious or sentient in some way. So what does that actually mean in practical terms?
I can start out with that. I have been teaching this program, Aquarian Shamanic Astrology, for a number of years now with that understanding that everything is conscious, which means that we can be in direct communication with the planets, with the stars. I think this is something that ancient cultures were very aware of, and that as we have moved through this time of the descending cycle of the Hindu Yuga cycle, we started to get caught in the illusion of separation and to forget that capacity that we once had to be in communion and communication with all that is. And I believe that's what's coming back to us in this time. And so, for example, we can explore the energies of the stars and planets, but we can also, with my classes, we do shamanic journeys and go into direct communication with them to allow them to speak to us and allow us to know what their messages are to us, what their meaning is, what their medicine is to help us so that we're co-creating together.
Patrick.
I completely agree. And one of the things that's really awakened for me over this past period as I've found myself in more active co-creation with planets is, the old axiom, as above, so below, which if we look at it from a hierarchical perspective, it would almost feel like the planets are dictating what's happening in our lives, or they're in some ways shaping it, as opposed to a two-way communication. And this knowledge that the planets are experiencing themselves through us, that there is no separation, and that when I experience a Venus transit, I am sending Venus information about itself through the way that I work with its energy and through the way that I express it. So for me, that's been so eye-opening over this past period of time, knowing that I am communicating with the planets and that they are responding to me, that they are seeing themselves in new ways. They're seeing new expressions of themselves, which, as I understand it, is how our universe is organized. That fundamental principle of we've given ourselves this experience of separateness to get to know more about ourselves. So it's not just us as people down here on Earth learning about who we are, it's also the planets learning about who they are.
You know, this is music to my ears. I mean, I was introduced to astrology many, many, many years ago, and I studied it. I wouldn't, you know, I'm just an amateur and I haven't studied it as deeply as you have. But as you said, you know, I always used to think of it as something distant, something that was kind of directing my life, had some control over my life. It never occurred to me that I could actually, you know, have this relationship back and forth with the planets. So, but I've always known that there was something more to it. And since talking to you guys, you know, there's a whole other arena that's opened up to explore.
It is so exciting, and I think it is a part of what it shows that we're in this time of accelerating consciousness. You know, again, one of my areas of interest is the precessional cycle, and we have exited the Kali Yuga now, this last 5,000 to 6,000 years of the time of our forgetting, our getting caught in the illusion of separation. And that period ended in March of 2025. So what we're experiencing now is this rapidly accelerating change and movement into higher consciousness, which is opening up again these capacities to remember that we can be in communication with all that is. We used to be telepathic. I think that's going to be coming back again.
Yeah.
So that we are remembering that everything is interconnected. We're a part of the oneness of all that is.
Mm. Do you want to add anything to that, Patrick?
Yeah, I also love looking at those bigger cycles, and I'm thinking about on the macrocosmic level, also how we're moving into the galactic current sheet, how our galaxy is rotating, it's moving into the photon belt. We're moving into a place where there's more solar radiation reaching us, there's more light reaching us. And it's not just Earth that is experiencing tremendous physical changes as this process is unfolding. It's also the other planets and our solar system. I know the European Space Agency has tracked the planets and seen observable physical effects on the rotation speeds, on the frequencies that they're emitting. So knowing that this really is, it's a whole system evolution that's happening around us.
Yeah. As the old hierarchy of astrology, you know, the rulerships, benefics, malefics is challenged, what systems or assumptions do you think won't survive in the astrology of the future? Patrick, do you want to take that one first?
That's a brilliant question. And one of the ones that comes to my mind, I did a lot of training as a traditional astrologer. And I love traditional astrology. I love the mathematics of it. I love how the system was so brilliantly constructed. There's one term that's always struck me as strange, and it's the term rulership. This idea that particular signs of the zodiac have a planet that rules over them. And as I look at things from this more connected perspective, it doesn't make sense to me that a planet would rule over stars. This feels strangely hierarchical. It also feels bizarre to think that a small, like you think about the size difference between a planet and a star, and that this small local mass is somehow ruling over this tremendously enormous distant star system. That to me also doesn't make sense. So to me, it's anything that's hierarchical. And while I can appreciate that there is a relationship, say, between Venus and Libra, that relationship to me feels more like one of cooperation and more like a local ambassador or a representative or a spokesperson for that energy or a way for that energy to reach us rather than something that presides over it. So I know, Heather, you've also thought a lot about the dissolution of the patriarchy and how, as that's happening around us, astrology needs to change. So I'm curious for you too, how you see that.
Oh, that's so well said, Patrick. And I think part of what you're highlighting is, again, if we look at this in the context of the precessional cycle, our tropical zodiac chart got locked in time in the age of Aries. And a lot of these traditional understandings of astrology, Hellenistic astrology, traditional astrology, come from the understanding of the ancient Greek and Roman cultures. And I think that is a part of what's changing as we're in this time of moving into higher consciousness. We're letting go of some of those hierarchical ways of thinking that are very associated with what occurred in the age of Aries. And I think in the age of Aries, we got caught in that energy of Aries and Mars in an out of balance way. And that's part of what we're releasing, which allows us to get out of those hierarchical notions of rulership and also the polarization of malefics, benefics, labeling certain planets as somehow harmful or challenging. Every planet has its gift and its challenge, and it's all how we interact with their energies and allow them to be working with us in our own path of evolution of consciousness. There are no good or bad energies or planets. And I think a lot of that is going to be dissolving as we move into these new ways of understanding astrology.
Mm. Heather, you say that astrology is not our chart, it's the entire living field. If astrology is everywhere, not just in a natal wheel, how does that change how we should engage with it?
That's a great question, Sandie. And part of what has influenced me, I've been very influenced by Bernadette Brady's work, she talks about the importance of our not collapsing everything onto the ecliptic. And that's what we have with our charts. That part of, I think, the shift that we're going to be in with astrology is reclaiming the whole sky and honoring our visual and experiential connection with the sky again, rather than collapsing everything onto this ecliptic plane that allows us then to put it on a piece of paper and try to analyze it that way. Again, I think we're opening up more to coming back into direct experiential relationship with the sky in its wholeness and how it's all a part of this interconnectedness of the earth and sky and all that is. What do you think about that, Patrick?
That is such a wonderful and timely question. Just for the first time the other day, I looked at the alignment, the physical alignment of the planets when I was born, not on this 2D chart, but using its solar system scope, actually being able to look at a 3D model of how the planets sat at the time when I was born. And it is striking how differently I perceived it. For one thing, just noticing I was born very near a Sun-Venus conjunction, and looking at the interior conjunction. So looking at that as a 3D model, I'm seeing how Venus is so close to the Earth, and the moon is sitting between the Earth and Venus at the time of my birth. And it gave me this new appreciation for that planet, for that archetype, and for the very prominent role that it plays in my life. And that's not something that's so visible from the 2D representation. So I find that it's much more complete, it feels much more intuitive, and it's reaching me in a deeper place. And for me, it really helped me connect with some of those wonderful values, that deep love, that deep compassion, that desire for harmony that I've always felt within me, but wouldn't rise to prominence if I were to look at this printed out on a piece of paper and to analyze it with that more left-brained approach.
if I can add to that, I love what you're saying, Patrick, and I love working with visual astrology, where you're also looking at literally where were the sun and moon and planets at the time of our birth. And as you just said, Patrick, part of what I love about that is it becomes a much more intuitive way of working with the placements of the planets, and much more visual and much more poetic. For example, some of my planets are under the paws of Leo the lion, the constellation of Leo. And, when I'm working with other charts or other people, their moon may be between the horns of the bull of Taurus. It just carries so much richer symbolic meaning, and also allows us to see more clearly where were the luminaries and the planets actually in the sky at the time of our birth.
To have this experience is quite different than having your chart read. I told Patrick in a previous conversation that many years ago, I attended a seminar with an astrologer who did experiential astrology, and he would, have these pieces of wood, and he would make the chart, and he would have you stand. He'd say, right, okay, this is the first house, and there's Gemini in the first house. And now I'm going to put something opposite, or I'm going to put Mars square in it. And he would ask you how you felt. Mm-hmm. And it was so interesting because, you could feel it. And that was such a surprise to me. You could actually feel it. It's amazing.
I fully believe it. And I think there's even another level, because remembering that these planets are also in motion and the sun is in motion. So if we're getting even that bigger picture of how they're moving through space and they're moving through time in this particular way as we are being born, that to me, it's endlessly fascinating. And then you're looking at the sun revolving around the galactic center, and then the galactic center revolving around the supergalactic center. It is truly endless, the layers of motion that are present within this. So there's always more that we can appreciate from really capturing the wholeness, rather than looking at this one particular moment in time and freeze framing it, knowing that this is part of a cycle. This is part of something that is perpetually and forever in motion.
We've all been conditioned to look up for answers. So what does genuine co-creation with the cosmos look like?
Well, that's just a great question, Sandie. Part of what I reflect on is in more ancient times, like if you look back to ancient Sumer, their understanding was not that there's the earth and the sky, that they're separate. They actually had this sense of we're all part of this wholeness, this sphere, heaven, earth. And I think part of what we're reclaiming is, as you were saying earlier, Patrick, that understanding of as above, so below, as it is within us, so it is outside of us. Those hermetic principles that allow us to realize everything is interwoven and is a part of this whole. So to me, part of co-creating with these energies is realizing there are these energies of harmony, of interconnectedness, of balance that run through the cosmos. And as we can attune to them, this is the ancient Egyptian understanding of Ma'at. Everything is in right harmony, right balance with everything else. So to me, it's how do we come into balance within ourselves to be in right relationship with these planets, to then be a part of the harmony of the spheres. That's our co-creation, when we're attuning to each other and finding then our unique song, our unique note in this symphony of the spheres.
So how do we come into harmony with the planets?
Well, yeah, I love what you said, Heather. And for me, it's this awareness that it's always been co-creation. that we have always been creating with the planets. We've always been creating with the earth. This is always how it has run. We are just now becoming conscious of it. So that for me is that key, is that as we become conscious and as we become aware that we are already in relationship with the earth, we are already in relationship with the sky. Our bodies are made of earth and our bodies are also made of stardust. So this is a physical reality that we live every day. And as we really embody that, that to me is that key to becoming the creator beings who we already are.
Well, that's really interesting because, we've always traditionally, astrology was used to describe fate. And now it seems we're looking at it describing participation, which is something that we're not, we weren't aware of it. We're not used to it. We've got to get used to it. So where do each of you see astrology heading in the next decade?
If I can back up a minute, though, Sandie, I think what's interesting is, again, if we remember that our modern sense of history is not accurate, we haven't been on this linear path of progression, that we do go through these cycles of evolution of consciousness with the precessional cycle. So part of what I think is really interesting, I was telling Patrick the other day, I've read this book recently called Prehistory Decoded by Martin Sweatman, talking about how the astronomical or astrological language is our oldest language. And these ancient cultures, take the Dogon in Africa, they were communing with Sirius A and Sirius B and knew scientific information about those binary stars long before we discovered that information with telescopes and our modern scientific equipment. So I think part of the movement forward with astrology is to remember the wisdom that we've lost connection with, that we can be in communication and communion with these energies in the way that we were before and come back into that connection and then, as Patrick said so beautifully, be co-creating with these energies moving forward.
Do you want to enlarge on that, Patrick?
My mind's gone to thinking about fate, which is such a powerful word, and thinking about amor fati and loving your fate, and thinking about fate and destiny and providence. And one of the big shifts that I've experienced in my own awareness, exactly as you say, Heather, by moving into this co-creative space, is knowing that these things are not fixed. That there is not one timeline that my birth chart is describing. My birth chart is a place of possibility. It is a place of potential. Much like me, we all exist in the quantum field. The field is infinite. Possibilities are infinite. There are no confines. The only limits are the limits that we accept. So for me, the understanding of fate has shifted, as opposed to this is something that is inevitable. And that release of predictability, which happens when we step outside of old patterns and we step into freedom. We step into this true creative dance that we are in every moment. It's possible to experience tremendous instantaneous shifts. And again, this is something we have known, the literature on miracles, the miracles that people have experienced for thousands and thousands of years, that we all experience in so many fantastic ways. And as we accept that this is possible, and that it's possible not only to shift the future, but it's possible to shift the past, it's possible to shift the present, it's all happening right here, that whole notion of fate and destiny and providence becomes much more malleable. And to me, it goes much more to that deeper sense of, well, what is aligned with your soul? What feels good to you? What would you like to create? That becomes the question, rather than what has to happen.
I'm experiencing something right now that relates to this question, which is why I'm asking it. have used astrology as a coping tool. We use it to outsource responsibility, and I've been doing that quite a bit the last couple of weeks with Mercury retrograde, blaming everything that happens in my life on, poor old Mercury retrograde. But we've got to start learning to use it as a tool for sovereignty. How do we do that? Heather?
Interesting. I mean, I'm still really reverberating with what Patrick just shared, because I love, if I can just go back to that for a minute, I love what you were saying, Patrick, in that it's changing our whole understanding of space and time. And I think, Sandie, this whole issue of how we have been caught in predictive astrology and that sense of fate has come out of that experience of being caught in a sense of separation and then longing for control and longing to have some sense of security or certainty in knowing what's going to unfold. And I think, as you were saying so beautifully, Patrick, a lot of it is allowing ourselves to be more in this time of fluidity and being in this dance with the energies of the stars and planets. The sovereignty, I think, is about our doing the inner work that we need to do to be in alignment with our soul self, to be in our full true self, to then be in this interaction with the energies of the planets and stars, so that we have our own sense of sovereignty, but in this harmonic, right relationship with the sovereignty of the planets, the sovereignty of the stars. So releasing, to me, a lot of the movement that we're going to be going through moving forward is letting go of that longing for control and certainty.
Easier said than done.
I know, it's true. Things can be so simple and they can be so straightforward, and yet it can take a lifetime to work through these things. And I hear you on Mercury retrograde, Sandie. I messaged you earlier. I think I spent 45 minutes ordering some pajamas last night. I ended up having to get a VPN, was going through PayPal. It was really an extraordinary experience. And for me, so much of it is, can I just sit here and find the joy? And if you think about that co-creative dance that you're in, that you are creating this experience with Mercury, and how is Mercury going to respond if you're swearing at it? And if you're casting aspersions and if you're blaming it, you kind of think, okay, well, no wonder things are getting worse rather than better. I'm experiencing more difficulties. Versus if you imagine Mercury delighting with you. So I imagine so much Mercury is that beautiful trickster energy. So for me, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to get these pajamas. I just don't know how. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know how many times I'm going to need to refresh the website or go in this new way. I'm just viewing this as some sort of a magical detour, and I know that it's all going to be okay in the end. And then I got to enjoy the experience. So that would be my question for you, Sandie, is can you bring yourself into just a state of joy? And I think some of it is we all had these experiences, and there's something so wonderfully human about it. When technology goes awry, when someone's microphone doesn't work, when an email gets misforwarded, we've all done that. We've all been there. So I think there's also something delightful about those heartfelt connections that can result from these snafus that we could easily get annoyed and frustrated at. And sometimes I still do.
I love that, Patrick. If I can add to that, I actually love Mercury retrograde, because I think it's a reminder to us to integrate our right brain ways of knowing and not be so caught up in our left brain ways of knowing and being and longing for certainty and control. That for me, Mercury retrograde is a reminder to step back, to reflect, to be intuitive, to be in this other way of being and knowing that is, for me, so refreshing. And it's such a nice balance.
Do you think that, over the last, 100 years, say, maybe a bit less, when astrology has really been, pushed to the side and it's a newspaper column and they pick out the best traits and the worst traits and that's all, the average person gets to hear about. Do you think that that has done great damage to, our relationship with the planets, our attitude towards the planets?
Mhm. I would say it's complex. I mean, on the one hand, I want to be appreciative because I think this has kept an awareness of astrology in the zeitgeist. Most people know what the zodiac is. Most people know what sign the sun was in when they were born. So I'm appreciative and grateful that it has found its way in. And also, I think you're right that maybe the time for that simplistic understanding has passed. And for me, it's not the way that astrology was addressed, but it's that paradigm that we can put people in boxes. And because you have this sign, you will behave this way. And when we do that, we disempower people. We don't give them choice about how they want to manifest the energy that they're working with. So I would say more, it's about that point you made, Heather, around control, wanting to control the environment that we're in, wanting to control the people, wanting to have a clear way that we can relate to them because it feels safe to us, versus that much squishier sense of, well, this is a person and this person is complex and they show up in many different ways and I will get to know them in many different ways and it will not be consistent. And sometimes I will be surprised. And that to me is how astrology works.
One of the things I love about you, Patrick, is that you always help me look at the positive side of things. Has this always been part of your nature, or did this arise within you after you started studying astrology?
I mean, I'd say fundamentally, yes, it's always been part of my nature. And also, I have heavily cultivated this approach. It really is a very active choice on my part. And I think about it in some ways, sometimes it's really natural and easy to see the positive. You go outside and it's sunny and it's a beautiful day and it feels warm and it's the weekend and there's nothing to do. It's very easy to feel light and happy. This feels very different from like a cold January day in London. The sun is setting at 3:30 p.m. It's raining. Everyone's in a rush. You can still find the joy there, but it becomes more about choosing to put your focus and your attention there. So for me, I've always found that ease of appreciating joy when it's present. And it's been a constant and very conscious effort to engage with things in that fashion and to make a choice not to complain. What does it do to if I complain about the weather? The weather isn't going to change. The weather's not going to be happy if I'm complaining about it. I'm not going to be happy if I'm complaining. The people I'm talking with are also not going to be happy. So I'd say the same thing about Mercury retrograde. I could certainly sit and complain about the things that have happened to me during Mercury retrograde, but who is that helping? So for me, yes, I think it's natural to all of us on a deeper level. And then also, can we just choose to make a commitment?
Heather, I'm curious to know if studying astrology, practicing astrology, everything you've learned, how that might have changed you in any particular way, your character, your personality?
That's such a good question, Sandie. I think it has profoundly changed me in the sense that it, beginning to understand astrology gave me such a different perspective on what it means for us to be true to ourselves. As a clinical psychologist, there's this normative sense of what it means to be a healthy person. And part of what I love about astrology is really saying to be healthy and whole, you need to be who you uniquely are. And that sense of the chart as a blueprint of our soul's intentions in this lifetime is so profound. And it's given me a deeper and deeper sense of awe and wonder with how everything is interconnected, that these planets were in these particular configurations in the sky, and those are the energies that I was born into that now are a part of who I am. And that, as Patrick's been talking about, we can co-create with those energies to choose how we work with them and how we manifest them. But it's given me such a sense that we're not alone, that we are connected with all of these energies of the earth and sky. And it really has just given me this incredible gratitude and sense of wonder for how all of this unfolds.
Mm. One of the strongest themes right now is embodiment, not ideology. How do you see astrology becoming embodied rather than mental or predictive? And what would that look like?
In some sense, I'd say it already is embodied. For one thing, I'm very aware of medical astrology, which I find utterly fascinating, that maps the star onto our bodies, and you're able to very literally see where you might be holding tension, or where you might experience discomfort, or where you might experience dis-ease. So I remember when I first studied medical astrology, I found that so striking, to know that there is very clearly a map on my body that is matching a map that is up there in the sky. So that drew a very clear line between the physical experience that I'm having and what's happening up there in the heavens. And then I think there is that broader point too, on appreciating that we are the cosmos. And that's something that I very often experience in my meditative experiences, also more and more increasingly in sessions, is having people feel the light that is coursing through them. And that light is the same light that we see up in the sky. It's the light that it's emitted from stars. It's reflected back from the moon. It's reflected back from planets. Every cell in your body is a chakra. Every cell functions like a star. And when you really live with that embodied awareness, the appreciation of the fractal nation of the universe, then you just become it. You realize that you already are it.
Beautiful.
I'm just getting my head, as you're talking, round beginning to see the planets as personalities, as people even, that I can talk to. Now, I don't think I can quite go where you're going at the moment. It's going to take a while, just to get used to seeing them as personalities. But to see them as a personality is a whole other experience. It's really interesting. There's a part of me that, as you're talking, is off having a conversation with Mercury, this trickster guy. And it's very amusing. And it's personal. And it brings Mercury into a place where it's real to me in a whole other way.
And that's what mythology does in so many ways, right? It creates these characters, or Greek mythology especially, it creates these human-like characters.
Yes.
And we get to relate to them through that way, a way in which we can understand. So I know what you mean, Sandie. I feel like these planets are my friends, and I do have personal relationships with them. And who knows, you might have had a past life as a planet. You might have a future life as a planet. Your consciousness exists on so many different levels.
Yeah. I remember reading a book about, the gods, and the gods really did exist. The only thing is that they've become very weakened because we no longer talk about them. We no longer believe in them. But if we were to start believing in them again, they would become stronger and more powerful. If you follow that thread, we start believing in Mercury as a person, what's going to happen?
I think it is also just that reminder again that everything is a fractal expression of cosmic consciousness. Everything is conscious. I was just in a conversation with Bibhu Dev Misra yesterday about his exploration of the galactic center and how the ancient Vedic texts and ancient wisdom held that awareness that the galactic center is the source of our cosmic consciousness. and that it is this creative, conscious energy that is affecting the stars and planets and us. So it really changes everything when we begin to remember and reclaim that awareness that everything is conscious.
Mm. And in the middle of all this, an interstellar object arrives. 3i Atlas. I mean, NASA's saying it's a natural comet. Theoretical physicist Avi Loeb suggests it may be engineered. I mean, what's your feeling about that? Heather, let's start with you.
First of all, I call it an interstellar being. Again, honoring its consciousness. And to me, the synchronization of 3i Atlas in its dance through our solar system, the fact that it's come in such a close alignment to our ecliptic, and then it's making these passes by Mars, then it's perihelion with the sun, then it's passed by Venus, all in this exquisite dance. All of its ways of activating these different parts of our solar system have also been synchronized with full moons or new moons. The pass by Mars and Venus close to a full moon. It's passed by the Earth December 19th on the day of a new moon, close to a new moon when it goes by Jupiter in March. It just shows the level of consciousness and intelligence of this being as it's moving through our solar system. And I think guiding us in this accelerated time of shifts in our consciousness.
Patrick, what's your take?
I love that. I love the word being. And for me, I mean, 3i Atlas, it is consciousness. And it's consciousness that's come from outside of our solar system, that has wisdom, it has awareness, and it is coming into close physical proximity with us. And just by knowing that it is visible from where we are here, we know that we are in communication with it. We know that we are receiving and we are sending. And I think it's a really wonderful and powerful reminder that, number one, we don't know as much as we think we know, that things are coming in from the unknown. I think that's a delightful reminder. I think it's also a reminder that we're not alone, that there are presences from all over our solar system, from all over our galaxy, from all over our universe that are in contact and in communication with us, and that those are being revealed. So I really appreciate that coming into, and I just want to celebrate that we have this new welcome that our solar system has extended to this kind of energy, that we're able to perceive it, that we're able to resonate it, that we're able to be with it. I think it's fantastic. And I really look forward to seeing what it unlocks. Because to me, this isn't a one-off event. This is something that is announcing, it feels to me like fireworks, that it's announcing an arrival. It's announcing a new awareness. And I think that question around, like, is it synthetic, or has it been manufactured, or has it been sent intentionally? Well, isn't everything intentional? If we look at a conscious universe where we're all connected and when we're all co-creating, then there's no accident. There's nothing that's random. And whether it is fabricated outside of our solar system and sent in, I mean, there's always some creator force that's behind it. I was just musing around that, the expression intelligent design, which I know was kind of a rebranding of creationism. And I was thinking about how intelligent design is actually a really sensible principle for how our universe operates. So to me, it doesn't really matter what the origin of it is, as much as it does the appreciation of the experience that it offers. And knowing that it's here, and the very fact that it's here, this is an announcement of presence that changes everything.
So it's a catalyst. Yeah. And do you see it as a catalyst for monumental change?
I certainly do. And I think it's interesting that as Patrick was saying so beautifully, it is such a significant arrival in our solar system, and it's billions of years old. And it's come in at a time when we also have this swarm of other comets in our solar system. And it's very significant to me that we have all these comets and Three-Eye Atlas at this time when we are in this critical point in the precessional cycle that is a critical karmic choice point. As Patrick was saying, we move through this galactic current sheet, and that happens every 12,000 years. And I think it becomes a time where we go through these radical shifts in our consciousness, and Earth changes. And 12,000 years ago, our planet went through a cataclysmic reset, the Younger Dryas period, caused by comets and a comet strike. So I think these comets in our solar system and Three-Eye Atlas are saying this is a time of a karmic choice point. Wake up. Remember this larger cycle that you go through as humanity and as a planet. And this, from my perspective, is a profound opportunity for us to make this evolutionary leap, quantum leap, into being multi-dimensional beings again. And I think Three-Eye Atlas, as you said beautifully, Sandie, is a catalyst. It's trying to encourage us to see what we're capable of.
It's asking us a really important question, isn't it? Yeah. Founder of the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd, he calls 2026 the year of the closing door. He was in an interview with Pam recently, and Pam says it's the year that we stop rehearsing and start living the metamorphosis. What is your individual interpretations of this moment?
Patrick, you want to take that first?
Yeah, my gosh, that is a wonderfully spacious question. And I think I want to give myself the gift of not walking in with any expectations. And for me, this is my answer to the question, that it's being in the I am and the here now presence of just being able to sit with whatever comes, to trust whatever is arising, to be fully present in this moment, and to know that in this moment, everything can change. That who I am in this moment is a choice that I'm making right now, and that this choice has reverberations that go out through time and space and that shape my experience. So for me, it is being in this creator presence, knowing that I am all that is, that I can sit with this level of consciousness. So I don't want to put any labels or any words on what I imagine or what I expect for next year. For me, really, the invitation is to be in the now and to allow myself to be more fully and completely in the now. And I will say that this is something that has become so much more available to me as I have experienced time passing over the past few years, especially. I feel these parts of me that are waking up, that are joining, this version of me that's sitting here right now. I feel them from across the galaxy, from across the universe. I feel myself lighting up. So I can trust and I can believe that this is what will continue to happen. But I don't want to put any confines on what that experience will look like for anyone else.
Heather?
Well, I love what you're saying, Patrick, because again, it's about not predicting what's unfolding, but being in the co-creation. And part of my sense of wonder about this time is we exited the Kali Yuga, that time of our lowest level of consciousness, March of 2025. Three-Eye Atlas has come into our solar system. It's doing this dance with us. It will make its pass by the Earth December 19th, just before the solstice, 9 months after the end of the Kali Yuga. And Kelly Kolodny in Channeling Angel Raphael has just beautifully described that as a time of gestation, so that we have the opportunity for new birth as humanity, beginning at this December solstice. And I fully feel that. That's my intuitive sense of this time that we're in. We've been in such an accelerated time of change, and this is a moment where we can birth ourselves anew as humanity. But again, it's our choice and how we co-create with these energies. But I believe we're in a 7-year period from 2025 to 2032, where this is our critical choice point in how we're co-creating with these energies that will shape how this all unfolds. And there's some astrological and astronomical reasons why I see it being that 7-year period, but I think this is such a profound liminal time where we're called into radical transformation.
So in that period, which is going to be a major pivot point for us, obviously, what do you think is going to change? Is it consciousness? Is it biology? Is it our collective direction, or all of the above and more?
Do you want me to answer that, or Patrick?
Yeah, you can answer it, and Patrick too, if he feels inclined.
Well, Patrick was talking about how we're going through this galactic current sheet. And Patrick, as you're saying, I think that is so important. We are being inundated with solar energies, with energies from our galactic center, that I think these energies are changing us physically, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, allowing us, as the Peruvian shamans would say, to be becoming homoluminous ones, beings of light, that we are being called into a radical evolutionary shift. And it's these energies of the cosmos that are moving and activating everything in our solar system, in our galaxy. But again, how we respond to them will shape how we co-create with those energies. And I think those energies are destabilizing to some people, but I think it's activating this higher consciousness and awakening in so many people. So I think part of the challenge of this time is, how do we clear any of those blocks that we have, ways in which we might be resisting these energies, so that we can fully open to them, absorb them, and be a part of this co-creation of a new consciousness with them.
Yeah, and I'd say that resonates as true for me. And all of the things that you listed, Sandie, I think they're all changing. I mean, I think when we know that when we change, everything around us also changes. And one of the things I'm noticing as I'm tuning into even the word catalyst, that catalyst has a feeling, almost a linear feeling. It comes and it initiates something, and then something follows from that. And what's it like to look at that from a nonlinear perspective, to step out of time and space and to perceive it just from this greater sense of presence? And that's really what I'm feeling called to do, is to both acknowledge those changes that we experience through space and time. And we do move through space and time. We have physical bodies, our bodies age, they move through space and time in a wonderful way. And we also have this non-local awareness, this awareness where we already are who we're going to be in 5 years. So maybe this is what I'm feeling, that I'm stepping into more and more, is this appreciation of duality. That yes, I can look at how things are unfolding and notice how they have unfolded, and also I can locate myself at the finish line. I can locate myself as the whole of the racetrack. I can feel myself as this larger presence and just notice what point of the cycle we sit at. So that's, to me, what feels so spacious right now, is really going into this place of, well, I already am whatever it is that I'm becoming. And how can I just allow that to be? And that, for me, is a place where there isn't any resistance to the change. There isn't any resistance to the evolution, where it brings me more into that richness of possibility. As you said, Heather, what do I want to choose? And I do really feel more and more that I have the power to choose the world I get to experience.
Mm. One of the themes from Pam and Richard's conversation was that those who do the inner work now will experience these years, and especially 2027, very differently from those who don't. So the inner preparation is really important. For many people, what does that look like? What is inner preparation? What do I have to do? Give me a list of things that I need to do so that I know that I'm doing it right or something. I mean, what does that look like to you two?
Well, I could circle back to something you said earlier, Patrick, that the nature of our experience in doing readings is radically different today for me than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. That I think part of what we're seeing and experiencing is these energies that are active in our solar system right now are calling us all to see what's been hidden and to really be more aware of our own inner process, our own wounds, our own issues that we need to heal, that we need to work. And I find in my readings that people are just so much more aware and conscious of those things than they were in the past. And I think that we're really being guided individually and collectively to see those ways that we've been caught in disharmony or imbalance, to be able to release them, to open to these energies and these shifts. And I think part of what we're seeing on the planet right now is a purging of the shadow aspects of humanity that we've been caught in trauma, in separation, in war, in polarization for the last 5,000 years. And that it's a call to clear that, not to get mired in that, but to release that so that we can be in this profound time of healing and transformation.
Patrick?
Yeah, I love that. I really have this deep sense of the truth revealing itself as you're talking, Heather. And this is what we're allowing. We're allowing for the truth of who we are to come out and to move forward. And if I answered your question directly, Sandie, it would be throw away your to-do list. Let go of the idea that there's anything that you need to do, and let go of the idea that there's anything that's right, that there's one particular answer that's right. And I also want to share a perspective that I found really helpful when I think about people talk about a bifurcation, or they talk about some people moving on to one timeline and being in a place where things are more joyful, and others staying in a place where maybe it feels like there's more strife or more struggle. I found this really helpful to appreciate that in this physical world where we experience duality and we learn through contrast, to just be really grateful to those people who appear to be staying behind, who appear to be staying in a place of strife or struggle, because that helps us realize the choices that we're making. And when we see somebody who's choosing to stay with that pattern, it helps us realize that we are moving into another way of being. And maybe we're just looking at one aspect of them. Maybe there's another reality where we're the ones who are staying in this place of stuckness or strife or struggle, and they are the ones who are releasing and are moving up. So to me, that's such a helpful way to see things, to really look at everyone as participating in this together, and those who have chosen to embody the stuckness or to embody those older patterns or to embody that density so that we can appreciate that we've changed. The same way that when you go back to your high school, or you go back to a place that you used to work, and you notice how different you are from how you were then. that's how I've come to look at these people who are maybe staying with us, and they're staying with us and doing us a tremendous favor of mirroring back that stuckness, mirroring back that density so that we can have a chance to see it and to release it. And just knowing that for me, there is no separation. We are really all in it together. Everyone made it. Everyone made it to the other side. You don't need to worry about anybody else. They're going to be okay. They already are. If you're okay, they're part of you. That means they're also okay.
Mm. You know, these ideas, the answers, the things that you've shared, they don't come out of theory. They come from your lived experiences, both of you. I'd like to just go back a little and talk about, your own paths and how you came to see the cosmos the way that you do. So, Heather, your mystical experience in 1993 dismantled your entire life. Do you see humanity now entering a similar collective death rebirth? And what did your own rebirth teach you about how to navigate such an experience?
You ask such amazing questions, Sandie. That's a really deep question. That experience that I had in 1993 did radically reshape my life. I had been on a spiritual path in my own way prior to that, but that experience of really hearing this inner voice saying, you need to leave your life as you've known it or you will die, that led to my completely reconfiguring where I lived, my career, everything that I was doing. It really taught me the meaning of radical trust, the willingness to be in the liminal time, in the not knowing, in the mystery, to be in connection with the energies of all that is, to be in that journey of transformation. And I think a big part of what we're going through now as humanity is we're in this time of not knowing. We're leaving behind the paradigms of the past, deconstructing the systems that we've been clinging to for security and a sense of certainty, and having to honor being in this liminal time of mystery and not knowing. And yet, as the ancient cultures used to talk about, it's in the liminal time that the most healing and transformation can happen. And then we move into these new ways of being beyond our comprehension if we trust and open to being in this time of not knowing and mystery.
You're right. And as a Gemini, whose keywords, I know, or I'm going to know, that is one of the hardest things to deal with, to just trust. It's so difficult. So, Patrick, you come human rights law and public service background. What convinced you that astrology is not an escape from reality, but a deeper way of engaging with it?
That is a wonderful question. And there were many years I spent in my life where I was skeptical of astrology, where I went very much into that legal, rational way of viewing things, and even thinking about the horoscope columns in the paper. And if you look at that as astrology, well, it doesn't make sense that 1/12 of the population would have the same kind of day. But then when I began to appreciate the complexity, which I think happened, I could say it happened by accident, but nothing is really by accident. But it happened as the result of me going down a podcast wormhole and somehow ending up listening to some astrologers talking about current events with this wonderfully layered and complex appreciation for all that exists. And suddenly seeing this is like universal law. These are really the way that things operate. And we have human-made law, which may or may not be in alignment with that. But that was also so much my calling, looking at these universal principles that are the bedrock for human rights law, the bedrock for the United Nations, what we have agreed as a people, what is best for us, what is best for the planet. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a spiritual document. It is such a beautiful, moving, and meaningful text. And when I started to see that this isn't different from law, it's not different from what I have been doing, it's just a new appreciation. It's a new layer. And once I realized that this is real, that this does capture our experience, and I started seeing how it changed my life to have that bird's eye view, and I started seeing how it was changing the lives of people around me, there was no question that I was going to pursue this.
Mm. So both of you integrate psychology, intuition, and spiritual practice with astrology. Do you think that the future of astrology is interdisciplinary, or does it become something entirely new that doesn't fit any existing discipline? Heather?
Absolutely. If we realize that part of the shift that we're in is to become more left brain, right brain balanced, we are in a process of reclaiming more our intuition, right brain ways of knowing, our integrative understanding. So I absolutely believe that some of the movement into the Aquarian age is seeing the interconnectedness of all that is and seeing things in these interdisciplinary, layered, complex ways, and not trying to isolate things or keep things in this focus of specialization. So absolutely, I think it will be very much that synthesis of all these aspects of ourselves, because that's what astrology is. It is about the interconnectedness of everything, but how it unfolds and how we work with it and how we understand it, I think, is part of the mystery of what's still unfolding.
Mm. Patrick, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I find it funny these days calling myself an astrologer. I feel like everyone is an astrologer. Anyone who uses astrology or who relates with astrology or chooses to study it, to practice with it, can call themselves an astrologer. The release of labels and just this appreciation of this is a gorgeous tool. It is a wisdom practice. It's available to all of us. It is innate. And I think it's going to be really cool to see people start waking up to astrology in their own ways. And I think it's going to happen really fast. And I also love that we all have our own way of relating to the planets. We all have our own way of relating to the universe. And so I see astrology as becoming so much more fluid. And as you said, Heather, merging with some of these other faculties that we have, with our intuition, with our right brain, with this deeper connective sense of knowing that's present all around us. Astrology to me is one ingredient. It's not the wholeness. It's not the only paradigm through which we can see the world, nor is it necessary. There are people who live very happy and fulfilling lives and don't know anything about astrology and don't care to know anything about it. So to me, it's not even something that we all need to engage with, but it's just such a warm and inviting energy for us to appreciate how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to the cosmos. And that to me is really what this time is all about.
Hmm. So if astrology is evolving because consciousness is evolving, what is the next skill or awareness that humanity must develop to work with the cosmos rather than reacting to it? Patrick?
Well, I wonder if that's a skill to develop or if it's something that's innate and exists within us already. And if what we're doing is really maybe engaging in a process of unlearning and letting go of the idea that it is somehow separate from us or that we have to go and study it. If I think about my kids and how they relate to the planets and the moon, it's perfect. Just the way it is. They understand what they are. I have said nothing to them about this. They understand what they are. They feel the energy. They move with it in synchronicity and in perfect harmony and flow. So to me, this is our natural way of being. It's not something that we have to go to school to pick up. And what we might label as a skill now is really something that is helping us to unlearn and to come back to that very essential relationship that we all have.
Heather, do you have anything
That's
to
a
add?
beautiful way to put it, Patrick. I think I agree that it's not necessarily learning a new skill, but remembering what we once knew and
Mm.
opening to these ways of being back in connection, back in communion. And then it will unfold from there.
So here's a question for both of you. What's a truth about astrology or humanity that you haven't said publicly, either because people weren't ready to hear it 5 years ago, say, or still aren't?
I can give you one, and it's a fun one. My truth is that it's all made up. And if you think about constellations, constellations are made up. I sit with my kids sometimes and we look at the stars in the sky. You can draw whatever patterns you want. You can make an elephant. You can make a bear. You can make a dolphin. You can make a birthday cake. You can connect things however you want. And if I think about the idea of 12 constellations around the ecliptic, we pick 12 because it's a wonderful number. You can divide it into 3 and 4. You get the signs and the modalities, into 6 and 2, and then you get the polarities. So to me, this doesn't mean that it's not meaningful. To me, we make things up in order to give things meaning. So when I say that with tremendous respect and reverence and appreciation for what we have made up about this and for the meaning that it offers us. And I also want to acknowledge that people have made things up differently. I know, Heather, you've talked about some of the other star lore cultures that you've looked at and appreciated, which identify planets in completely different ways from how Western astrology would consider them, or would have different constellations that they would look at. So to me, it's like language. Language is also made up.
Mm.
English is made up. French is made up. Chinese is made up. These are all ways that we make up in order to communicate meaning, in order to share and to discover ourselves. So I sit very comfortably with this idea that this is a beautiful system that we made up. And it offers us so much meaning and such a beautiful connection. And also, because of that, we don't have to be attached to it. We can allow for it to change. We can allow for ourselves to integrate other perspectives that see things in another way, that put the stars together differently, that don't use the number 12. And that to me is where that real expansion is coming from.
And you wouldn't have said that 5 years ago?
I don't think I would have said that 5 years ago. Absolutely not. It's kind of fun. I remember, again, thanks to my kids, my daughter came home at some point and she said, everything is made up. And I was like, you're right. Everything is made up. And she's like, school is made up. Yes, you are correct. School is made up. And from every single thing that she could list, I was like, yep, it's made up. It's made up. It's made up. So astrology is not immune from being made up.
Yeah. Yeah. Heather, is there something that you wouldn't have said 5 years ago?
I'm not sure how to answer that. I do know that it's more and more clear to me that we are on this journey of the soul and growth and consciousness. And that becomes something that I feel more and more at ease talking about and naming. But I've just got to circle back to what Patrick said, because I'm really, it's just so interesting how you were saying that, Patrick. And I would probably say it a little bit differently, that I don't know that everything is made up. I think we do work with our minds and project our own understandings of things, or see things through our own individual or cultural lenses. But I think part of what's exciting to me is that the more we come into our hearts, that to me is the big shift that's happening for all of us now, to be less in our minds and more in our hearts. And then we are able to open to the understanding of cosmic consciousness. That's our connection. And then there's a knowing that's beneath the ways in which we try to figure things out with our minds. And then, what you were saying earlier, Patrick, was really moving to me. We live in this cosmos of natural law and of harmony and energies. And as we open more with our hearts, we just know that and feel that and connect with that without having to figure it out.
I love that. And I think that knowing is the oneness.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the sky as one, well, then there is nothing that's being divided. Anytime you introduce a division or a separation, that's what's made up. And that's true in our experience of life. It's made up that we're separate people. We're not separate people. We are united. And I think you said that so brilliantly, that when we come into that unitive perspective, when we see it all at once and we feel it all at once, that's where the knowing is. And then as soon as we break that up, then we're going into our own version of making up a separation to get to know it better and appreciate the meaning behind it.
Beautifully said.
Well, here's another fun question for you both. 30 years from now, what do you think humanity will look back on and say, how did we ever believe that?
What are the ways? Yeah, I think there's so much that we'll look back on that we'll say, oh, that was so archaic. I think our understanding of healing, I think, we'll look at so much of what we've done in modern medicine as archaic and understand healing in radically new and different ways. I think there's so much that will be opening to us in, as Patrick was saying, that deeper sense of knowing that will allow us to tap into more of that unified field of cosmic consciousness in ways that are beyond our comprehension now.
Yeah. Patrick?
I'm really thinking about school because this is a very active theme in my life now, and thinking about how different schools are going to be in 30 years. And even sitting here in the UK, where I think our children here are the most tested of any children around the world. And it just feels already to me so strange and so archaic that we are testing kids and we are ranking them and assessing them, and not for their benefit, but for our benefit, to try to know where to sort them and where to put them. And I'll say, of all the parents who I talk to, what we all wish for is for our kids to have deeply fulfilling lives as themselves. And that's what these kids are wishing for too. So anything that's not in alignment with that, to me, just feels very strange and very bizarre. So I know that for me, that's often a first signal that it's going to be washing away.
So if you had to describe the future of astrology in one sentence, no metaphors, no poetry, what would you say?
I would say,
Go ahead.
oh,
Go ahead.
Heather, please.
That's hard, Sandie, but I would say opening more fully to the Song of the Spheres.
Nice. Patrick?
And I would say it's all here now.
Okay, so if people forget everything that we've talked about today, what is the one thing you want them to remember?
I think Patrick just said it.
I think you're probably right.
And that we're all a part of the oneness.
Yeah. So what is the most surprising thing that your work has taught you about being human?
You want to go for that one, Patrick?
Yeah. I have really been struck by how courageous we are. It amazes me that people who I've never met before will tell me their entire life story, and they'll tell me the ins and the outs of their experiences, and they'll trust me to sit there with them, and they will show up in the most beautiful way. And it's really helped me connect with my own sense of courage, the courage that it takes to be here. And like you mentioned my positivity and my choice to be positive, Sandie, this really draws on my courage to look at any situation and to choose to find the love, to choose to find the hope. And I see people doing this day in and day out, and I see them going through situations I could easily label as challenging, as difficult, as insurmountable, and yet there they are.
Okay, last question. If everything that you've said today turned out to be completely wrong, what's the one thing that you'd still stand by? Patrick? I think I know what you're going to say.
I think I'd still stand by it's all made up. Right and wrong is one of my favorite things that is made up. Don't tell my kids I said that.
Heather?
I think it would just be really honoring the sense of wonder and the sense that everything is interconnected.
Yeah. That's beautiful, because something that really stays with me, has stayed very dear to my heart, was I've got a 21-year-old grandson. And when he was about 5 months, I was looking after him for the weekend. And what struck me was every morning I'd take him to the window and he'd look at the tree with wonder. And the next day I'd take him to the window and he would look at the tree with wonder. And that went on for 3 days, and it made me realize how quickly we forget that, and everything just goes into the background.
Yeah.
So that's a lovely one. Thank you. Thank you for finishing on that. Yeah, the wonder. Heather Ensworth, Patrick Geary, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thank you, Sandie. It's been wonderful to be in this conversation with you both.
I've really enjoyed it. So for those of you at home, everything we've talked about today, the acceleration, the awakening, the astrology, only matters if we're willing to look at our own part in it. These global shifts always find their way into our personal lives, influencing how we think, act, and react. So this isn't about fate or the stars. It's about the choices we're making in the midst of all this change. We say we want a different world, but how often do we stop to look at the version of ourselves that we're bringing into it? Whether we notice it or not, everything we say and do is shaping what comes next. So think on this. If the world around us is changing, where in your life are you being asked to change with it? To learn more about Heather Ensworth's work, including her books, classes, astrology readings, shamanic training program, women's mystery school, and one-to-one sessions, visit risingmoonhealingcenter.com. And you can explore Patrick Geary's work with astrology, consciousness, energy, and personal sovereignty, including his classes, sessions, writings, and teachings at truthtakestime.com. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer. Thanks for watching, and join me for more Synergy sessions where every conversation takes us beyond the familiar into the fields of possibilities that are well worth exploring.
If today's conversation sparked your curiosity, you'll love our other shows. The Synergy Sessions, where leading-edge thinkers collide in bold, unscripted dialogues that ignite new possibilities between realms and reason, where we journey into the mysterious consciousness, energy, and the hidden layers of reality, where science converges with spirit in ways you've never imagined. and the No BS Spiritual Book Club, where leading-edge new thought speakers, teachers, authors, and luminaries who've walked this path before you share the 10 books that had the biggest impact on their life journey. All 3 shows are available on YouTube, Spotify, Substack, and all major podcast platforms. For more information, visit sedgbeer.com. That's SEDGBEER.com.